Hello and welcome to today's episode of Community Connections. I am your host, Anna Orr, and today's guest is an artist, a writer, a father, and someone that is very, very focused on fatherhood and connections through art. We're going to talk about fatherhood and give you an opportunity to join him in August for some very poignant sessions coming up. This is going to be an episode you won't want to miss. I'm so excited to have you joining me on this episode of Community Connections. Sean Garrison, can you please introduce yourself to those that may not be familiar with you or the amazing work that you do?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Sean Garrison. That's my artist name.
Yes.
All one word, lowercase. And I explain that to people because typically, anyway, I won't go down that path.
Please do. I think it'll help people kind of understand who you are.
Okay, so the origin of the name is that Garrison is my middle name. And for years, when I first moved here, I'm from Detroit, I was not fond of my middle name because it wasn't common. And so as I got older, and ironically, we're talking about fathers, my father wasn't that good of a person.
Okay.
And so because of him, that's how we ended up in Minnesota. Or should I say, getting away from that energy. And so when I decided to be this artist, I said, well, for years I was going to drop my last name and just be Sean Garrison. Then I figured there was one thing I learned from him. I said, you know what, I'm going to hold on to his last name because of that. But being an artist, I said, I need a cool artist name, and I didn't want to use Sean Phillips, which is my birth name, because it was just too bland for me. And I was like, man, Sean Garrison is perfect, but it has to be one word, because I look at the one because, Prince, Madonna, Pele, I'm like, that's super cool, right?
The one name.
The one name, the mononym, as we say. And so I said, let me do that. And then I put it all lowercase, because my thinking is that, when people become, or say they're artists, or they do something that gets a little bit of notoriety, people say, oh, it's an artist. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm just Sean from Detroit that grew up North Side. Mm-hmm. I'm still here with everybody else, and I'm saying that because I've come across people and they said, man, you're doing so. I said, hold up, stop. I'm still Sean from the hood, man,
Mm-hmm.
And so I did it all lowercase just to say, listen, don't amplify me, because a lot of what I do is for the people, and so I've kind of been intentional with that. And that's been difficult along the way, getting some folks to say, hey, this is how it's spelled, and so on and so forth. And that's okay. It takes time. Even for me, it is taking some getting adjusted to. And depending on the spaces that I'm in, I forget at times. That I have people keep me, hold on, man, who are you? Like, okay, so. But anyway, so that's the whole Sean Garrison.
Well, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, we are talking a little bit about your art and also your work in community. Like you just said, you are still from down the street over here in the community just doing what you do. But you are a writer, an artist, a father. You wear so many different hats. Can you talk to me just a little bit about where your love of art first began?
So I think most artists say, I knew I could draw when I was a kid, mm-hmm. right? But I distinctly remember when I was 4, and there's a reason why I remember that at age. I'll tell you about that off camera because it's not relevant to the conversation. But I remember when I was 4 years old, I had this little Superman action figure, mm-hmm. and we lived on Schaefer in Detroit.
Okay.
I'll never forget. I was drawing this figure. I thought, oh, this is kind of hip. And so that's when my first recollection of being in drawing. I wouldn't say I was an artist at the time. And then when we moved here, and I was thinking about 9 or 10 when we moved here. and my mother, single mother at this point. And as opposed to her having to deal with or be concerned about my well-being, so to say, and my other two siblings, I kind of took myself out of that equation and turned to art and to writing to really deal with what I had going on, because I didn't want to put it in her lap, because I knew she had my other two siblings. And so that really kind of picked up when I was early teens, 15, 16, when I started writing and when I started understanding a little bit of what life was, right? And things were really just pressing on me, from even my estrangement from my pops to just social stuff, and being as really, I guess the word would be nerdy at the time, or just as I was a different type of kid. And so as opposed to, like I said, having her have to worry about Sean, I just kind of stood off to the side and started writing. And then the visual, that started to 16, and so my visual piece would have been, when I got back to it, would have been 2010, when I started painting again. And then it took me 3 more years to finally say, okay, now I'm an artist. Because that's a responsibility to me to say you're an artist, because there's something that comes with that, an obligation. And I wasn't ready for that when I started, because I was still trying to figure out what a paintbrush was and how that made me feel. So.
That's powerful. Now, you are here talking about an amazing event that you will have taking place in August coming up, called the Father Paint event. And can you talk to people about what this is? I thought this was a really cool concept when I saw the flyer, and thus wanted to have you on the program to discuss this amazing event.
Definitely. So a lot of my work, as you said earlier, is with community, or things that have meaning to humanity as a whole. A lot of my performative work, I didn't talk about this earlier, but I do a lot of studio work, abstract work. And then my performative side of me is more or less, 24 feet, 6 feet by 6 in front of people, and we're talking about something that actually matters to humanity.
Right.
And this leads into Father Paint. So the first show I did, where I stuck my toe in the water, as they say, I did a show around Brother George Floyd's murder. That was in 2021. I did that show. And then 2 years ago, around that time as well, I did a couple of shows around the violence in North Minneapolis. And then 2 years ago, I painted a mass lynching to talk about racism and oppression and supremacy in this country through a different lens, through a lens that's not as sanitized that we get when we're sitting across the table from people and everybody has practiced conversations and responses. My decision was to do this show that people had to speak from a space of pain, because that's the most honest emotion that we have. And so people speak from that space and say, okay, now what are you going to do differently in your part of the world to mitigate the effects of all of this stuff that we know is wrong? And in order for me to achieve that, I had to figure out, okay, what image can I use that get people to that space? And I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to use this hanging body, because that's history. A lot of folks want to talk about American history in its full voice, but that's part of American history. So that's why I did that. So how does all that tie into Father Paint? So I was speaking with someone with the Minneapolis Public School District about something totally different. And then they referred me to someone else, and I'm talking to this woman, and she goes, have you ever thought about doing something for fathers? I said, it's funny you mentioned that, because I just had a conversation with another gentleman, nothing to do with the district, but he was in the fatherhood arena. It was like 3 weeks prior to this other conversation. I said, well, I'm talking to this woman, I said, well, I haven't directly through my art. Now, through my work, I did social service, or I call it people serving work. Other folks call it social service. I did that for 38 years.
Okay.
And part of that was working with fathers who were transitioning from incarceration and transitions back to their family. I did that for 4 years. And so doing this work now, this Father Paint piece, even the conversation with this woman, when she mentioned it, it took me back to the conversation I had with these men and how to get them reconnected in a sense to their kids and to their families. So Father Paint came about. I had this conversation with this woman asking, have I worked with fathers? I was like, yeah, I had, but it hadn't been through this arts lens. It's always been through families as a whole, right? But then when she mentioned that, I got to thinking, I said, I'll do that. I can. It's not that hard to do, because the way I paint is such an emotional thing for me. And it's from a sense of, I paint from between my shoulders and not my ears. Meaning when I'm painting, I'm really painting on what I feel, based on some things that I know from through an artistic lens. But I don't get, I'm gonna paint this. Typically it's whatever happens is what's supposed to happen. And it's based on where I am in that precise moment, how I feel. And fatherhood, even my journey as a father, I haven't been perfect. And it's been a lot of ups and downs and joys and pains and angst and tears. And all that to me is a palette of who I am as a father. And so this program, Father Paint, is about helping men, one, discuss with other men their journeys. Two, this is how you can communicate with your children in a different way. Because sometimes, we don't all have the perfect words to say certain things, but we know what it looks and feels like.
Yep. And
all of that has a color to me. All of that has a particular movement to me. And so the goal is to teach men in almost in a condensed way. This is how you paint, in a sense, the way I paint your emotions, and it's all totally perfect. Because one thing I tell people when I do these workshops is that when they say, I can't paint, I have an older young person that I'm working with now. This sister, she got to be probably 85. Every time I see her, she goes, I can't paint. I'm not that good. I said, ma'am, you can't be good when you're great. Everything you do is going to be perfect. Just let it go. And so then, then she starts, and it's the most beautiful work, because now she's painting from here. Mm-hmm. And so with these fathers, that's what the hope is. Y'all paint from how you feel about your kids. Don't paint from all these external things that you heard about how fathers should be, or not even your own things you have in your head. Because sometimes we have these doubts. I know with me, like, man, did I do the right thing? And I don't know. And and so it's this sometimes it's constant battle. But when you're painting, it's also beautifully perfect when you just let it go, because that's what it's supposed to be. And that's how little kids paint. That's how 4-year-olds, when you see they on the wall, they scribbling, people get mad. I'm like, let that child go. Because that child is free in the moment, has no constraints of what things are supposed to look like, what they're supposed to be. They are totally free. As we get older, we tend to worry about too much stuff. And so freedom is this thing that we talk about, but few of us truly know. But in that moment, for me, that's the most free I feel when I'm performing. And so I want fathers to feel that, and they be able to take this beauty of them and give to their children, and then utilize what they've learned in these 8 hours to further their conversations with their kids. Because most kids know they love art. They may not be able to verbalize how they even feel, but they can tell you, this is where I am, And so to help fathers build that. And now we have this common thing. And it's not even expensive. You don't have to take the kid, do some $500, but no, just get a piece of paper, maybe some crayons, and some time. That's it.
Now, we're talking about materials and things. Can you let people know what they will receive when they come and participate in the sessions with you?
So the intangible things they'll receive is hopefully edification, further edification of their fatherhood, or this bond, this understanding that I'm just super cool the way I am. A way to look at fatherhood differently, that we know it's not going to be perfect, but whatever we do, whenever we do something with good intent, it's always perfect, even if it's wrong. So my thing, if the intent is good, it's always right. You can fix the outcome, but it's hard to fix the intent, because you can't go back and fix that, right? And so hopefully and just a good time. That's what I hope these fathers get. That's the intangible. Now the tangible pieces they would get I guess the biggest piece folks would say, they get a $200 stipend. They get to hang out and get $200 to hang out.
With your kid, with your stud, you're able to.
And actually, it's just
that.
fathers,
Right?
you know, so they can take that and do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they get some art journals. I've been working on this art journal. Actually, it was for parents, but it was their parents, so that people can utilize and do like a 30-day type thing that you can actually utilize and work with your child on a daily basis to ask, how are you doing? Or they can ask you how you're doing. Because one of the disconnects I know that we have as a people is sometimes these external forces get to working on our young folks, and we tend to miss out sometimes on these communications and things that we need to know about them, and vice versa. Either A, because we're either so busy working to make ends meet and we can't connect. And sometimes folks are just tired and don't connect. But we need to connect some way, and I think this journal is a way to sit next to you all of 60 seconds. Write it down, draw it out. This how you feel. Now let's talk about this. So get these art journals. They'll get art supplies. They'll get this really cool aluminum briefcase. They look like James Bond or some secret agent. I'll feed them, and there's something else in them that I can't. Let me see here. That might be it.
I think you actually did cover everything.
Oh, okay.
Now talk to me about what is the art of fatherhood. You've talked about how your art and your own relationship kind of have this intertwined, I guess this kind of intertwined relationship, so to speak, and it comes out in your art. But what would you say now as being the artist, but also as a father now? What is the art of fatherhood?
The art of fatherhood to me is like art. There's not one correct answer to what this thing is. Whatever you do, and I'm answering this twofold, one how I create and one this fatherhood piece, is that even if you mess up, you can always go back and correct it. Now, when we're dealing with our children, it's difficult at times because sometimes we have to admit that we're wrong, right? And sometimes, I'll just say men, we have an issue with saying I'm wrong. And so, but it's an opportunity to go, the art of it is to figure out how can I make this mistake, correct it, and create something totally different and beautiful. Outside of art, I mean, the art world itself, or my practice itself, the art of fatherhood is being able to listen, being brave enough to discuss and talk to your kids and other fathers about these challenges, you know. And being able to feel, I think, is probably the most important thing. There's an art to being emotional and feeling, you know, as we're living in this as a patriarchal country in a sense. Being a man with emotions or playing that role with emotions is almost taboo, and still. And we have to understand we have to be soft in certain moments as fathers to really understand our young folks and our kids, even those that aren't our blood children. Because to me, all these babies are my kids. I don't care what block you from. I don't care what country you from. If you look like me, you're my kid. And I have to come across, meaning I have to teach you, and even in them few seconds, I have to teach you something that I feel can help you further on down the road, or be concerned for your well-being, I guess is a better way to put that. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that, 'cause I could probably talk about that for 4 or 5 more hours.
I love the concept that you share about this event. You're going to allow people the space to discuss, to grow, and to create. And it sounds like during this time, during the discussion, I think a lot of people are going to realize they're a lot more alike than they thought.
Definitely.
They're dealing with a lot of the same things, even though they're not raising the same children.
That's right. That's right.
And hopefully create a safe space for them to start not only connecting with one another, but start emoting maybe a little bit more to their children.
Yes. You said the word emote. That's like one of my favorite words. Yes, we have to learn how to emote, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, those that know me know that, man, this dude would cry at the drop of a hat. What is wrong with this cat? Like nothing. I'm just human.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have myself, especially at this age, experience what I used to experience as a kid when I held things in, and because I didn't want to put this stuff out into the world. And that's damaging us. And it's hard to be, to me, it's hard to be a father when you're holding so much in, because that affects not just us mentally, but physically. It's hard to show up 100% when half of you was just beat up and you don't want to talk about it. And that's part of what this is about. Let this thing go. Whatever you got going on, let it go so you can show up the best way you can show up for your kids. Because that's how we have to be, and that's how we should be. And your community, not just your children, but show up the right way. But too many of us, we have trauma, and I get that. But to know it and to actively not deal with it is such a dereliction of your humanity. It's like, come on, we got to show it right for our kids and our people.
How do you personally continuously let go in this society with all of the external things that keep coming, with what we see in the media sometimes, with what we experience in our own communities day to day? It becomes heavy. How do you consistently let go?
I'm telling you what's wild about that question. You made my goosebumps now. A lot of people ask me that. Or how do you, what's the word? They say, how do you, self-care? That's the word they use. Self-care. What do you do for self-care? That's the question. I used to, so letting go, right? I used to go paint and create, but since I'm so in tune with the mission and my purpose now, with that part of my practice, if I go paint, it takes me back to why I'm there in the first place. It's like, okay, I'm here, let's say, because of, let's say, racism or something crazy, and I need to get away and just breathe a little bit. But I'll start, and then my mind takes me, okay, this is what I should be doing in this moment for this purpose. So, right, I put it in God's hands right now. That's my only way. I mean, I write. I still do a lot of writing. But and if nothing else, that takes me away from some things. The paint, I go right back to the purpose and the cause when I'm painting. When I'm writing, I can kind of use a different part of my brain to escape a little bit. But typically, I'm just wired right now, hardwired to focus on the mission and smile through it, because I know there's something better on the end of all this.
Now, just shifting gears a little bit, I want to start talking a little bit about what the criteria is for people to participate.
So the criteria, of course, you have to have kids. That's the number one criteria.
Right.
Other criteria is that you have to have a child in the Minneapolis Public Schools District, because they co-sponsor this. And other than that, come in and do 8 hours of work, so you get your couple $100.
Now, the events are taking place August 3rd
and
4th,
yes.
And you have room for 15 participants in
Yes.
each session.
Yes.
So for people that want to participate, can you please provide them with the website so that they can start getting the information together, but also so they can start thinking about what they want to discuss, grow, and create?
Right. So the witness is going to be long. Make sure I don't get it wrong. The website is www.seangarrisonartist.com/Father Paint Info Registration.
I think you did actually get it right in that. Thank you very much. Now let's talk about location. Where are people coming to so that they can start this journey?
So location is going to be at my studio at the Northrop King building, which is at 1500 Jackson Street Northeast. That's Minneapolis, on Studio 286. Zip code 55411. It's about 15 minutes from here.
Now, you talked about having this partnership with Minneapolis Public Schools. Are you open to do this with other groups, say maybe a church or maybe other school districts, so that they can start to experience this amazing event for themselves?
Oh, definitely. Part of I'm about the community. So if there's any other groups that want to do this work and really want to understand and experience this, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it. They just have to be ready to listen to me talk, because I like to talk.
I think you have some really important things to say, and I think the fathers that are going to join you in August are going to really benefit from the fellowship, but also the conversation amongst each other.
Yeah, and the hope is that they'll wake up the next day and go, wow, I need to do that again. That's always the goal. I figure if I do anything, any type of arts, anything, if the person doesn't wake up the next day and go, that was quite the experience, I need to do it again, then I failed. And so I know all these men will think that, just based on what we're going to do, because they'll have to think and access some spaces within themselves that they typically don't access, but they'll feel 100% human because of that. And that's where I want fathers to be. It's like, be human in this moment. We don't have to be Superman. We know we are Superman.
Right.
But you can also be human in this. And being human means you have to be vulnerable, have to allow yourself to hurt, have to allow yourself to ask the tough questions. You have to be open to, and this won't be this type of vibe, but it could happen. You have to be open to constructive criticism. You have to be open to a pat on the back or a hug and be totally cool. But that's what being human is. And so, because that's me. I'll give you a pound, I'll give you a hug, whatever you need, just so you can, hey, this is where we are. And we need each other to be right for these babies.
Very true.
So.
Now, for someone that is straddling the fence and saying, I want to participate, but I'm nervous about maybe some of the feelings that are going to come up about maybe their own fatherhood experience or their relationship with their dad. What do you have to say to them to encourage them to come to the event? I'm going to have you take a second and just look directly in that camera and talk to someone that's interested in attendance.
If you are straddling the fence on attending a Father Pain conference, I would say be brave and allow yourself to be free. And whatever emotions that you may feel or hesitancies that you may have will definitely be answered in this moment.
Thank you so much.
And if you don't come, I'm going to come looking for you.
Because you said you are out in the community, so you probably will run into them sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so and I'll say this, since I'm at this beautiful news station, it's cross-cultural. And I would love to see, East African brothers, any African brother or sister come that's from home to show up, and because what I know is that there is this divide amongst African Americans and brothers and sisters from home. I say that's home. People say, where are you from? I was born in Detroit, but I'm from Africa. That's right. Yeah, they're like, what? Anyway, that's a whole other story. But there's this thing, and I just want cats to show up and be you, because we all need to learn. And this is not, that doesn't have to be said, but we need each other to get through this thing called America. We need that definitely. And I need my brothers from across the waters as much as they need me.
Absolutely.
And so to have them brothers in space would be super cool.
Let people know, are you on social media, Sean Garrison?
Yes, I am on social media. Let me see if I get all these names right.
I was going to say, are you on Facebook, Instagram?
I'm on Facebook under Sean Garrison.
Okay.
All one word. I'm on Instagram at Sean Garrison Artist, because there's another Sean Garrison in the world. Oh, no. And I'm still on Twitter, but I don't mess around with that too much, or
Okay.
X or whatever it's called now.
Okay.
And then there's another one. Those are the two main ones. You know, you see anything and everything about Sean Garrison. Then my website, www.seangarrisonartist.com. You really want to know who I am? Go to the website and just dig through all that. Interviews and performances, and by the time you're done, you will have a great idea on who I am and why you should show up at this or
At this
enroll.
event. Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
Well, thank you for joining me today on this very special episode of Community Connections, and right after Father's Day, to have this conversation, to continue the work that I'm sure a lot of people have committed to this last year, to be better fathers and to be more involved. I really appreciate you joining me, Sean Garrison, and all the success to you as you navigate this next month of August.
Yeah, thank you. We gonna get it.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for this episode of Community Connections. As always, I am your host, Anna Orr. This has aired on OROMIA11, and I look forward to connecting again with you soon.